The first sign that something was wrong was the eerie quiet. Pete had been up with the dawn that morning, as usual, and the cows needed milking. Times of uncertainty in human affairs never changed that. But as he emerged from the shed, Pete saw in the distance something he had never seen before: German military vehicles in the Netherlands. The invasion the Dutch had hoped wouldn't happen was underway. Pete did what he had thought would not be necessary, what Dutch farmers had done since time immemorial to warn and communicate with neighbors. He grabbed his midwinterhoorn and sounded the alarm so his neighbors would know to prepare. A traditional horn with a mouthpiece made of elderwood. You're listening to Plant Connection. Life today can feel overwhelming, like we've drifted away from its natural rhythm. This podcast is your space to slow down, breathe, and rediscover the peace and clarity that come from reconnecting with the natural world. I'm your host, Lisa Cutshaw. Let's reconnect, one plant at a time. Okay, the funny thing about this episode is I actually started working on this episode a couple years ago, and it's taken me all this time to come back to it because I could not find a reference that confirmed that had ever happened, that people had used the midwinterhoorn to warn their neighbors when the Dutch invasion happened. But it's finally true. I finally found an actual academic paper stating that it happened. Weirdly, the only source initially that I could find that said it happened was AI, so I thought it was perhaps not true. But no, in fact, a horn with a mouthpiece made of elderwood was used. Now, to me, calling something elderwood sounds like it belongs in another time, maybe medieval or Celtic or something, just not modern, right? Elderwood is it was used in wands in Harry Potter, right? The funny thing is that term, because it feels awkward to refer to the wood of that shrub as elderberry, but that's how I've always known it. When I talk about elderberry, as a rule, I'm not generally talking about the berries of the plant. That's the name of the entire shrub. At least that's how I've always heard of it referred to. Anyway, the berries of elderberry grow on an elderberry bush. Yeah, awkward, I guess, but I never really think about that when I use the word, unless I'm thinking about how to speak clearly for, a podcast or something. I would imagine I'm not alone in considering elderberry to be a familiar friend. It grows wild on the hill below our chicken coop, and we have a little pond inside the chicken run where a small spring provides a constant source of water for the chickens and the ducks, and the overflow of that runs out and down the hill, making a perfect spot with full sun and moist soil for elderberry plants to thrive in. And they do. So much so that our goats love to get out of the fence and go hang out in there, and they often, destroy the elderberry shrubs, but they come back. So as I write this, our elderberry bushes are fully leafed out, they've already flowered, and they're about to set berries. If you can't picture the elderberry flower, think of Queen Anne's lace. It's an umbel with white flowers, kind of like a little umbrella-shaped thing where the spokes are on the skinny stems, reaching out in a circle around a central point, and the flowers at the end of each of those skinny spokes make a flat surface, kind of like the fabric of an umbrella. And those flowers are more than just another pretty posy. Like the berries, they are full of antioxidants and are used to make elderflower cordial. Some people even dip them in butter and fry them up into a sort of herbal elephant ear. I've never tried that, but maybe next year. We'll see. With the berries, you can make syrup, jam, pie, pretty much anything you can make with blueberries, but with the added benefit that they give a big boost to the immune system. The syrup itself is used by many as a homemade version of cold medicine, and folks say that taking it shortens the length of a cold. I can actually anecdotally attest to that. I've been giving my son elderberry syrup every day throughout the winter for the past couple of years, and it has, well, at least I think it has significantly helped him fight off, colds and flu. So I was curious, how do these claims hold up in the light of cold clinical evidence? Fair warning, I like herbal remedies, but I value the dispassionate proof of science to point me toward the remedies that actually help. So here's what science says about elderberry as a remedy. Clinical studies have shown that taking elderberry extract can shorten the course of the flu considerably. Studies have also shown that taking elderberry stops the enzyme that allows viruses to penetrate healthy cells in the nose and throat, so that it can not just shorten infection, but also possibly prevent infection at all if taken before exposure to a virus. Quick note, this is not to say that elderberry should be considered a panacea. Always use good judgment and consult a doctor before taking any supplement or choosing a course of treatment. But what's really interesting about what the clinical studies documented is that those results back up what the old-timers said. The old wives, if you will, like my great-grandma and many others like her who went up into the hills to collect medicine from the plants they found there. And the history goes back a lot farther than that. Archaeological evidence shows its use for at least 4,000 years. The historical use of elderberry as a medicine goes back to at least 400 BC. The ancient world is known to have used it because Hippocrates, Dioscorides, and Pliny all wrote about the medicinal use of elder. One of the things I love about elderberry is how friendly it feels. Now that may be because of my childhood. When I was a kid, it grew by the side of the road in the ditch line, stretching way above my head. You could take a walk and gather all the elderflower or elderberry you wanted when it was in bloom or berry season. For flowers, that was usually June, at least around here, and berries a little bit later, of course, generally around August. Hippocrates wrote that elder was a medicine chest in itself, and it has been popularly called the medicine chest of the people. William Coles in 1657 wrote, "There is hardly a disease from head to foot, but it cures." Again, I'm not advocating elderberry as a cure-all, but certainly in an age where malnutrition was rampant and fear of disease was constant, any plant that clearly helped would have been seen as valuable. Native Americans, too, have used it traditionally for treating all sorts of conditions, from infections to digestive issues to sprains and bruises. And many tribes used elder wood to make bows, musical instruments, and toys. Now, there are some cautions to be aware of. All parts of the elderberry plant can contain compounds that are mildly toxic. So most people recommend that you never eat the leaves or the stems, and for safety's sake, it's best to cook the flowers or berries before consuming them. That's built into the process of turning them into tea or cordial or syrup. So once they're turned into the type of product people use, those compounds should be denatured. And I should add that there are 20 to 30 different species in the Sambucus genus, and the two we're most commonly referring to are Sambucus nigra in Europe and Sambucus canadensis in eastern North America. For western North America, Sambucus caerulea is the most common native variety. It's been for that particular culture. And then as Christianity came through, it did its normal process of kind of taking what had been a cultural and religious connotation under pagan religion and kind of co-opted it to a Christian outlook, and then turned that, rather than it being a positive thing that the elder was connected to the other world, made that a negative to kind of make it feel dangerous and bad to go back to pagan practices. In any case, I respect the beliefs of other cultures, and I agree that we need to show elder respect, give it space to grow naturally, and when appropriate, accept the gift of healing that it might offer. Now, the midwinterhoorn is not the only musical instrument that was traditionally made of elder wood. The soft pith inside the branches makes it easy to hollow out the branch and turn it into a flute, for instance. Even the midwinterhoorn, like many historical instruments, is mostly considered a folk instrument, kept alive by dedicated enthusiasts and the tourist trade. It's good to keep some of that old knowledge, though, so that if it's ever needed again, it's available for people to use. If you want to plant some elderberry in your own landscape, there are quite a few varieties to choose from. For medicinal use, there are several common named varieties like Bob Gordon, Adams, and Wildwood. But for ornamental purposes, many of them are named varieties of Sambucus nigra, the European elderberry, and they often have dark-colored leaves that make a statement when planted with lighter-colored plants to provide contrast. Black lace and black beauty are varieties that many people will be familiar with. Keep in mind, those tend to be large plants, often 6 feet tall if not taller, so if you're going to use them, you have to think through where to plant them. In any case, I'm looking forward to watching the elderberries ripen in the next few weeks, and if time allows, I'll be out there gathering a few to stock my own family's herbal medicine chest. See you outside. Thank you for joining me on this journey back to nature with Plant Connection. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to tap subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss the next episode. See you next time.